Welcome back. Joined now is who's become a weekly guest the last 3 weeks, Ryan Andrade of RotoWire.com, brought to you by GolfPartnerUSA.com. I'm going to drop our link into the chat so you can go and see the great deals that Golf Partner USA has right there. So you see it. I just dropped it there. And Ryan, we're going to talk Masters in a second, but you have two main gigs at RotoWire. You do college basketball and you do golf. So we're going to talk Masters in a second, but college basketball-wise, this has been a wild week, especially here, waiting on Scott Drew's decision. He spurns Kentucky. They go to Mark Pope, who is one of their own, and the temperature in Lexington is low for him. What do you think about Kentucky's decision and how this went down?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you think about it, right? And, I think part of the Big Blue Nation's concerns and things like that is the fact that a job like Kentucky doesn't just go out on the open market. We've seen any of the blue bloods, really. I mean, we saw Duke and North Carolina get filled recently, but those were all hires within. You knew those were coming months ahead of time. You just don't really see a job like this open up. And the fact that there was a number of different candidates out there that they tried to reach out to and fell through for various reasons. But honestly, I think it's a solid hire. You look at Mark Pope and, he's always been a great offensive coach, even at his time at Utah Valley, before moving on to BYU. And honestly, look at BYU this year. They were picked to finish 13th in the Big 12 this year. And nobody really gave them a shot coming from the WCC into, what many consider to be the best conference in America, the Big 12. And man, I mean, he picked up some really big wins, probably most notably going into Allen Fieldhouse and knocking off Kansas. And, there's a lot of talk about, he doesn't have an NCAA tournament win yet or different things like that. And, honestly, I think you just sort of got to give him a chance and let him sort of develop there, get his recruiting in place and see what he can do.
Where do you think Kentucky fans are wrong to be disappointed because they were wrong to think that Danny Hurley or Jay Wright? I mean, like Scott Drew, it was close. I mean, it was he made a decision. It wasn't like he told them no right away. He sent his family up there, vetted everything, and decided to stay here. But thinking that when your first choices are Jay Wright, who's very retired, Danny Hurley, who's just won his second title in a row 3 days ago, and then Billy Donovan, who's in the NBA and hasn't been in college in over a decade. Do you think they set themselves up for this disappointment as opposed to just letting Mitch Barnhart figure out who the right guy is?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of a weird-ish situation in itself. You think about, Cal was sort of on the outs, it felt like, with a lot of their fans and a lot of the boosters and things like that. And I don't know how much that played into everything. They were certainly later in the, coaching carousel than a lot of these other teams that found, some pretty solid options. I definitely think it's for the Kentucky fans. I think it's more of a pride thing, seeing a lot of bigger name coaches that, and seemingly it would be an upgrade. Scott Drew, he's been at Baylor for 20 plus years. And I mean, I think if there wasn't, I saw it was sort of a family decision and, which is very understandable that he wanted to stay in Waco. But I think a guy like that, or a guy like, Dan Hurley, if he's not coming off 2 national championships, going from UConn to Kentucky, I mean, Kentucky is, like I said, it's sort of, right there with your Kansas, your North Carolina, your Duke, UCLA as sort of top of the top as far as college basketball goes. And I think that's where more of the frustration is for the Kentucky fans, is the fact that a lot of big names just said that we're good here. We're good where we are. So I think that's kind of where we are with that.
I talked with Kendall Cow, one of our writers on SicEm365.com yesterday, because he lives in Kansas and knows this very well. He's marrying a KU grad. I'm married to a KU grad, so I know this. But I'm curious from your perspective, because, Ryan, I know that you're a KU guy as well. And Kansas and Kentucky, Duke and, it's weird because Duke and North Carolina behave pretty much the same. Like, they're kind of opposite sides of the same coin. Kansas and Kentucky are those other two blue blood jobs that I would think they would behave kind of the same. But Kansas has never once complained about Bill Self. Not one time. Kentucky complains about everything all the time, including John Calipari, after he didn't make the Final Four for just a year. And then this has been building for about 8 years since he didn't make the Final Four. What do you think the difference is in that? Because Kansas fans went, 14 years between titles. But I've never heard one of them say, I'm just tired of Bill Self and his nonsense.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that if you just look at it, and it goes largely overshadowed with just how much emphasis is placed on the tournament, is the level of consistency, consistent greatness that Kansas has had. They have not had a single down year the way that a team like Kentucky, who I think has missed, a couple tournaments while Cal has been there, which just should be absolutely unacceptable when you're bringing in that kind of talent. Kansas has been a top 4 seed for the last 24 seasons, which is just they've certainly had their fair share of early exits. I'm not going to deny that, but the fact that every single year they are at least in the mix, whether that be for the Big 12 or there's at least some hope going into the tournament that they could go all the way. Sometimes it doesn't happen. But it's definitely interesting. I think just because Kentucky seems like they've had a few more higher profile players, I would say, over the last decade than Kansas has. Kansas has been a little bit more of the guys that are there for 4 or 5 years. They've had a few one and done here and there, but Kentucky is the one that's, we're the team that's leading in NBA first round draft picks by a wide margin over anybody for the last decade plus. And, they see these guys go to the NBA and ball out, and they're like, why couldn't you get this team to come together and put it together? So yeah, it's interesting how that sort of worked out, but it's weeks like this where I am definitely happy to be a Kansas fan, and I'll just let Kentucky just figure their stuff out and see where they go from here.
One day, and I know this because my wife and brother-in-law, I really just hope that when Bill Self retires, that the succession plan or who they have in mind, that it takes about 6 hours. I don't think I can take any more than that before the complete family meltdown that would happen. If they had to go through what Kentucky just went through at all. But that's probably, a few years off in the future, so I'm not going to worry about it now. All right, Ryan, let's talk Masters right now. Bryson DeChambeau, great start yesterday and is still the leader right now, except through 14 today, he is just even, so he has added nothing to that lead. Scotty Scheffler, even today through 8, he's still playing absolutely fantastic. Max Homa had a great day today, like he did yesterday. I mean, he was very consistent. So how do you think this is going to shake out as we get into Saturday?
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at it. I mean, it's this week sort of puts an emphasis on what men's professional golf has been missing for the last couple of years since Live Golf sort of came to the forefront. A guy like Bryson, which like he's had the highest of highs, he's had the lowest of lows, but he is content. I mean, he is absolutely exhilarating to watch, whether it's the long drives or this week. Big story was his irons were 3D printed, and the center of the club face is pushed up almost like a wood or a driver would be, to keep the face stable through impact through high speed, which nobody's ever thought of something like that before. But that's just the kind of guy that Bryson is. He's willing to go to the ends of the earth to try to find any sort of advantage. But he hasn't played well at Augusta as of late. But whatever he found with these irons, it's certainly been paying off, because he's hit quite a few. And listen, I mean, when you got wherever Scotty ends up finishing, the conditions are really, really tough out there right now. So we'll see where he comes in. But I mean, I would be surprised if Scotty did not win, considering the position he's at now and the players that are around him, just considering how good of a ball striker he is. But there's certainly no shortages of things to watch over the weekend.
Ryan, who do you think could make a move this week or on Saturday to get towards the top that's not DeChambeau, Homa, or Scheffler?
Yeah, I was kind of looking down the leaderboard, and one guy that came to mind was Ludwig Aubert. This is actually his first major championship start, which is incredible considering the fact that he is the number 9th ranked player in the world. And this time last year, he was playing college golf at Texas Tech. And so, I mean, man, he is a top 3 driver in the world. He's great with his irons, and the short game has actually been pretty strong for him too this week. But he's sitting there. He shot the round of the day so far. First guy to shoot in the 60s all day today. So he's sitting there at 2 under, just sort of lurking. I think a guy like that, a guy like a Patrick Cantlay, who has, he's basically won everything there is to win golf besides a major. He's won a FedEx Cup. I think he has 9 wins on the PGA Tour, but he's sitting there at 2 under, and he's got a sneaky good record at Augusta. He was the year Tiger won. He actually eagled 15 to briefly take the lead before Tiger came and got him. But I would say Aubert and Cantlay, just to the guys that are sort of lurking there at 1-2 under par. If it ends up being DeChambeau, Homa, Scheffler sort of at the top, those would probably be 2 guys I'd watch on moving day.
Tiger Woods just made his 24th consecutive cut. He's played, he's tied for 24th at 1 over. I guess he just knows that course so well, and I hope he actually finishes this year, because that would be great. I don't expect him to, take 8 shots out of this lead and go get up there like Tiger maybe could in the past, but still pretty impressive that has not missed the cut at Augusta ever.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing that really cemented it for me was the fact you think about that, right? And, there's been a lot of years, especially recently, where he's come in and, this might be his first start of the year. And the fact that he's able to still make the cut, considering the world-class players that are in this field, is truly incredible. I mean, you look at a guy like, Jordan Spieth, who's going to miss the cut this week. He's right in his prime. And Tiger hasn't had one single slip up like that, even when he hasn't even been playing, that makes it even more mind-blowing for me. And yeah, I mean, listen, if Tiger could, I mean, he would never do this because he's so competitive, but if the PGA Tour said, you can take a cart, you can go wherever you want, I think he would probably play 10, 12 times a year. And I think he could still easily be a top 25 player in the world. That's like how good he still hits the ball. The short game is always the thing to watch, because when you don't make that many competitive starts, that's usually the thing that takes the longest to sort of get there. it was pretty solid today. But yeah, I mean, it's just always going to be such a question, right? Because he can hit the shots, and the shots don't give him any pain at all. It's the walking, it's picking the ball out of the cup, and especially at a place like Augusta that's so hilly and it's got all these different types of slopes. It's just I hope he can get through 72 holes and put up two more decent rounds because man, I mean, it's just you never know how many more times you're going to get to watch a guy like that, and a special place like Augusta. It's just it's truly incredible to watch.
Ryan, thank you so much for hopping on again. Love having you on, like all the time. This has been great stuff. Super pumped to do more stuff with RotoWire. Look, for RotoWire.com is a fantastic look. If you're into fantasy sports betting, like any of that stuff, if you just like numbers, RotoWire.com is where you go. Ryan covers golf and college basketball for them. Ryan, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
Ryan Andrade from RotoWire.com. That's brought to you by GolfPartnerUSA.com.